This is why I like to use a wool pressing mat. So I'm working on one of the blocks for the Scarborough Fair quilt, and the tendency would be to press this cream piece this direction because we already have seams there. But when I do that, so I'm going to set the seam and then finger press this way. It shows that white ridge through the cream, and where I have not pressed it towards the cream piece, you can see that it doesn't show that white ridge. So instead of pressing it towards the cream, I'm going to press it towards the orange, even though it means that it's going to be pressing over these seams. So notice how when I press this with the wool mat underneath, this appears to be super flat. I'm now going to take and finger press this open. And just gently push the iron up against that seam. And then I'm going to flip it over and press it again from the back. And look at how nice and flat this seam is, even though it's going over those two seams. And it looks nice from the front, and it's not showing that seam. So I'll show you one more time, like how you see the seam if you press it towards the cream. We still get a nice flat seam with this wool mat, but we have that seam, and it's going to show up on every single one of these pieces that's throughout the quilt. So by turning it the other direction, setting this seam, getting it so it's pressed nice and flat. And the reason why the wool mat presses things so flat is because I'm using a dry iron. There's no steam in this iron. And what happens is the heat from the iron goes into the wool and then radiates back up into the piece, and so it almost acts like steam. So now I'm going to finger press this open and gently up against that seam, just flatly press that seam nice and flat. And there we go. We have a perfectly flat seam.